Hi, I'm Edwin and welcome to the CineFiles, a show that allows you to eavesdrop on the conversation of fellow film fanatics. All right, well today we're going to be discussing a topic that's been in the works for quite a while. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get around to it, but today we are finally being able to get around to it, and that is Hitchcock, our favorite underrated Hitchcock films. This was suggested by the guys over here, and I think it's an excellent topic. And this was a show that I've been looking forward to doing for a while, and this is one I think you're going to enjoy as much as I am.
We came up with this topic, underrated Hitchcock, because whenever the discussion with film fans come up with Hitchcock films, the usual suspects come out: Psycho, The Birds, Eric and I's favorite North by Northwest. And with some disgusted noises from
I hate
Edwin.
North by Northwest. I really.
This is a guy that wants to spend money for the Book of Eli, folks. So
hey, you paid or
and Daybreakers.
It was free. It was free.
Yeah, right.
But my underrated Hitchcock film that I really like, that nobody seems to mention, is Foreign Correspondent, which I really like a lot because, to me, Hitchcock really had some really big ideas for this film, and it's amazing that he has a kind of a grand Hollywood blockbuster on his hands where he's dealing with not only a big story, but really big topics like the pending war that we're going to be having with Germany. And he's kind of sounding the alarm bell.
This is 1940, which was the movie was filmed, which before we entered the war.
Which is amazing.
And it's very interesting. I actually did some research on this film. Because it was a film that came out, actually, it was not really underrated at the time. It got nominated for Best Picture.
But nobody ever talks about it.
No one talks about it, because the problem is it is a dated film because of it's talking about the upcoming war, but that's expected. I mean, you can't, but I think it's more of a time capsule where it captures that period very well. This one, I read there was a quote from Joseph Goebbels, who I believe is Goebbels, the very famous Goebbels, thank you, who was the very infamous Nazi who actually saw the film and said it was a wonderful piece of filmmaking because what it was a propaganda piece, and he said it was a dangerous film, and of course, for the Nazis, probably was because it really is a subversive film. And
it's really blowing the whistle on the rise of fascism within Europe, especially coming from Germany.
Yeah, it's a very well-made movie,
and it's not. I mean, at that time, there was a lot of Hollywood sentiment that we need to go to war, and so that was intended to be a propaganda piece.
It felt like a Michael Moore movie, actually, in some respects, in terms of just like a person trying to make a statement but being very subversive.
Well, I like Joel McCrea as your leading man. I thought he was fantastic.
He was a popular leading man at the time.
Yeah.
It went from Sullivan's Travels to something like this with Foreign Correspondent. But Foreign Correspondent is a very enjoyable film.
Tell us about the plot here, because we should take it.
Well, it's just basically Joel McCrea plays a foreign correspondent.
From America to
who's
England.
sent to England to do reports about perhaps the upcoming war or
and
well, it was mainly almost like a plot. It was like a lot of diplomatic stuff that he was getting involved with. It's kind of some dry stuff that we didn't know that was going to have pulpier aspects later on.
Based upon an espionage conspiracy with Germany, and it takes him. He goes from London to Holland,
to Amsterdam,
right?
To
Amsterdam,
and
wonderful image, wonderful scene with those windmills too.
Well, I was going to say the only exception I have to Foreign Correspondent being underrated, it's not. You're right. It's not talked about. However, there are two scenes in this movie that are talked about a lot as quintessential Hitchcock set pieces, and that's the windmills and the final scene, the plane crash.
The plane crash is
considered
amazing.
one of the most spectacular things.
That's like a Jerry Bruckheimer thing, but just put it
up for the time.
Like
it's
50
very
years
impressive.
Before Bruckheimer was cutting his teeth on
but
whatever.
What's so funny is that plane crash to me is more realistic than half the stuff you see today. I really felt there were crashes. I didn't feel like I was watching rear screen projection or CGI. I mean, it was very well edited and put together. One of his best set
what's
pieces.
interesting is it shows that Hitchcock was capable of doing almost anything cinematically. We're so used to him doing like the camera tricks and really making the suspense rise within a film and bringing the tension. But to have like just a really big, at the time, special effects that was really effective is just, that blew my mind when I first saw the film.
What I liked about it too, and there's another little thing I have one problem with the film, and there's one thing I want to mention I liked a lot, One problem I had was that the little of the dialogue was I thought it was like a little kind of like very fast-paced comedy. There was some, kind of Howard Hawks.
Yeah, I was going to say a little Preston Sturges.
But
I liked it.
I didn't think it worked with the movie because it just felt out of place. But I do want to mention one thing.
I think that was more of an effect from that time.
Yeah, from that time because it's very fast paced. I felt I was watching His Girl Friday or something like in parts. But don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's just it didn't to me. Hitchcock didn't always handle comedy well. He got better as he went along. I think he was mostly director of suspense and he always got great performances from his cast. In fact, one person I want to mention
screenwriters
and his screenwriters, but I want to mention. There's an excellent performance in this movie, and it's absolutely great to see him by Edwin Gwynn, who everyone remembers from Miracle on 34th Street as the assassin on the roof.
Oh, there was no assassin in Miracle on 34th Street. I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm going to disagree with you on the humor quotient. Hitchcock was very good with tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, I thought he got better as he went along.
All the way back to
Harry
his,
is awesome.
British films in the 1930s, Lady Vanishes, all that stuff. In fact, one of his best films from his Britain period was 39 Steps, which had a lot of influences show up in North by Northwest, Foreign Correspondent, and it's a very tongue-in-cheek.
Well, a lot of things that he reused later here, like the assassination, the political assassination in this film.
Well, see, that was one of my favorite scenes. Was in the rain with all the umbrellas and him trying to chase the suspect, and the camera, you really can't see past the umbrella, so it could be anybody. That was actually the scene that stuck with me throughout the whole film the most. That I remember.
Actually, I was going to say I think there's a lot of subtle humor in Strangers on a Train, but.
Yeah, well,
there's a lot of humor.
Well, he's gotten better with his humor.
Comedy.
I'm talking about when it's out like that, where it's just so in the open, where they're doing that fast-paced dialogue. I don't think Hitchcock is great with that. That kind of slapstick kind of.
I don't think it was so much slapstick.
But I'm talking about. It's like
Who
it's
was
a
the actor that
fire.
played basically the British reporter that was Joel McCrae's equal?
God,
he
was
wasn't
so much
really
like
British.
Jason Segel.
You're talking about no. He was. I was trying to remember his name actually.
Folger.
He was.
Well, he was British in there because he had the.
He didn't have an accent though. He was an American. Yeah. He was actually his American counterpart. He was trying to be. The joke was he was trying to affect the whole thing. If we're talking about the same guy, he was a famous American comedian. He used to do a lot of shorts. And
I'm talking the British guy, the other guy who was his rival.
Yeah,
his rival.
Yeah, who turned out to be just as brave as Joel McCrea at the end.
George Sanders.
Yeah.
George Sanders is awesome.
I thought
he was fantastic.
He looks so much like Jason Segel.
George Sanders.
He does look like a lot like
George Sanders. Used to play a lot of villains.
I don't see
like
the Jason
Segel.
Segel.
Very good though.
He was, and he had a great scene. He had a great moment where he infiltrates.
Oh, the one where he jumps out the window.
Right, jumps out the window, and he gets his moment to shine as heroic.
That's why I thought that character, and that's what Hitchcock did beautifully in this film, is he was able to take a throwaway character like that and give him a lot of substance. Yeah. Give him a real moment or two in the film, and not make him just like, hello, and then goes back into the shadows.
Okay, the one thing I got to say, I didn't when I was watching this, I got to be honest, I was a little bored for the beginning of it because it was where he's getting.
Well, once again, it goes with that diplomatic coverage.
Well, the minute it gets to the scene Jeff mentioned, that's when I started to get interested in the movie quite a bit, and I really liked the windmill sequence. I thought that was vintage Hitchcock.
Yeah, the umbrella scene is an amazing scene.
As hell.
The assassination.
And I got to say, this is one of the rare films where Hitchcock doesn't look like he really actually shot on location a lot of it, and that adds a lot. Because later on, Hitchcock liked a controlled environment. That was one of his famous things.
A lot of back screen.
A lot of rear screen projection. He always liked to be in control. He never liked to be outside. So it was very rare when you see a film like his where it was really shot on location. One of the films that I think is one of his most underrated films, well, it's not underrated, but it's I think one of his best films is Shadow of a Doubt. And that's one of the rare films that was completely shot on location.
Well, see, what you're saying about Foreign Correspondent and the locations, that was like one of the problems I really had with Inglourious Bastards, was that you're filming in Europe in this foreign country, but he's sticking to interiors. Tarantino tended not to really film any of like the buildings or anything around him, so it felt very closed off. But as you can see with Foreign Correspondent, Hitchcock understood the need for more, filming out in the streets, using locations to the best of your ability, and just opening up the film instead of making it feel boxed in. So that's another thing I really liked about the film.
Yeah, because that's the thing about Hitchcock. When he's great, he's amazing. Vertigo is one of my favorite films of all time. But there was some problem in there where he actually is like where Kim Novak jumps off a bridge, and of course it's obviously shot in a studio. And
that's not an underrated film.
No,
so Foreign Correspondent is a big thumbs up.
Yes, I think I'll agree.
Plug your film.
All right,
so
Jay
Jeff,
Galashaw.
Okay, my choice. Excuse my voice. By the way, I am a man. If anybody sees me out on the
we're
streets.
not questioning.
He's a man, baby.
That's why you look like Kimbo Slice.
No, I used to look like Kimbo Slice. I have shaved recently. But if I was in this film that I'm about to mention, I would look like Kimbo Slice, which is Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, which to me, one of the most amazing things is that the whole film takes place on one raft, a boat with all these survivors from an ocean liner that has been sunk. And the fact that even though you have so many characters on this boat, it's still dramatic, and it's still a high-paced thriller where, they're trying to figure out if one of the people on the boat could be, a spy.
A Nazi spy.
And nobody trusts anybody, but yet you still have the romance in there, everything a good film should. And again, even though, it's not really shot, the way a traditional movie would be shot, but because there's a lot of like rear projection and back screen. But I was just amazed that he could keep me entertained for close to 2 hours in one location.
Well, that's the thing about this one. Even though it was shot inside a studio, it didn't bother me so much because this one felt like a play. And I thought that he actually used the backlot in the projection very well.
Yeah, but you never.
That's why I felt it was like watching a play. I mean, it didn't bother me.
It's
I was
very
sunk in the
similar.
world. It's really an actor's-driven
sort of
showcase.
conceit to another film he did called Rope, which was all shot. And, it was his experiment trying to shoot everything in one take.
And this film never gets boring.
Ever.
No.
Not that any of those other
Yeah,
films.
I mean, I could not agree more. I thought Lifeboat was fantastic. I had always wanted to see this film, and finally, because we were doing this show, I got to move it up on my Netflix queue. Once I sat down, I was riveted. Every performance I thought was spot on. Tallulah Bankhead, I thought she was great.
Probably her best performance of that, I think.
I mean, as somebody who always played a type, which was the Tallulah Bankhead type, it worked here perfectly. Walter Slezak as the Nazi U-boat sailor, he was very effective because he seemed jolly and really harmless, and you realize that this person is poison to these people here. And who else? William Bendix was fantastic as the kind of kind of that Life of Riley type. Not a very bright guy. Guy who was kind of got into the war by accident. He seemed to be more in tune with his girlfriend and dance contests and stuff.
People most might remember him from the Babe Ruth story, which is
or the Life of Riley.
Yeah.
Which was like that Honeymooners ripoff, but it was actually successful for a while.
This one I like because the suspense is that it keeps you guessing throughout. And I gotta say, I love the way Hitchcock works in his infamous cameo in the newspaper ad. I have to say that is brilliant because they said Hitchcock goes, I can't just come up swimming on the shore, And there's another little anecdote. I mean, it has nothing really to do with the movie, but it makes me laugh.
And it also tends to make it says something about class on the ship because all the people who were rich and thought that they were better than everybody else, now they have to depend on what the people they think are lower than them to survive.
Hume Cronin was excellent.
Yeah,
I keep
Cronin
forgetting, he's
shocking.
terrific in that. You know what I like too about
Especially
the film?
if you only know him from
I
Scream.
like that it's one of the films that just keeps you guessing throughout. In fact, it was remade for television, kind of unofficially, as a movie called Life Pod, a science fiction version, actually.
I bet it was awesome.
Believe it or not, it actually wasn't bad. Ron Silver's in it. It's where a spaceship explodes and they're all in like a pod, and of course people are dying on the ship.
Was
for
this a
various reasons.
sci-fi original?
Yeah, it was. It was sci-fi. It's got
God.
CCH Pounder in it, and it's got Ron Silver. It's not bad. Actually, I caught it, and one night on cable, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. I was like, hey, this is familiar. Why is this familiar? And I said, oh wait, and I checked it out, and it was of course ripped off from Lifeboat.
What a strange name, CCH Pounder.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah, but back to the movie. Definitely one of Hitchcock's most underrated. I would
And on
say.
the same subject, since he mentioned CCH Pounder, the black guy lives till the end.
Wow, very rare at that time.
Exactly.
And there's a very famous anecdote which I love, where they were filming, where Tallulah Bankhead, of course, wasn't wearing any panties, and Hitchcock said, "Should we call over wardrobe or hairdressing?"
Well, now. The one actor that I was most intrigued in, I forget his last name, Dana something, that played basically the male lead. The head sailor that was the romantic interest for Tallulah Bankhead's character, Dana something or other.
I will put it in
The guy that he.
It's not Dana Andrews.
No, okay, Dana Andrews was the industrialist. I'm thinking.
No. I'm talking about Dana Andrews was like a leading man. He wasn't in Life.
No. You know the guy that was really hot-headed? He was the romantic...
I don't know that name.
And I thought he was a fantastic actor. He reminded me a little bit of, what's his name, from Ed Wood, that played Bela Lugosi. He reminded Martin Landau. He reminded me a little bit of him, in his face. But this guy, disappeared.
So what would you guys? What would you rate?
And nobody knows him.
Well,
if you,
I've always-
if you watch
I always-
this on YouTube, let us know.
I always
today.
thought Lifeboat was a great film. I mean, I remember there was a period where it was talked up a lot. May not be talked up as much now, but I recall it being one of those films they would talk about when we talk about Hitchcock films.
But do you really think it's an underrated Hitchcock? I really don't think so. Because everyone I know seems to love this one.
I think it's. I mean, when we talk about underrated Hitchcock, we're talking about films that are rarely spoken about or films that are well regarded. These days, you don't hear Lifeboat talking about that much, but there was a time where it was talked up along with the other stuff, and I have no reason why. Maybe because there's been this whole thing of reevaluating some films. For some reason, you hear people talk about Marnie a lot now.
It's because Marnie. It's because Brian De Palma hasn't remade it yet. That's why.
I don't know what he can do with a Lifeboat in one set thing.
One location. That's
Well,
too much.
if he
for
could
him.
get Rebecca Romaine Stamos in a cat suit, maybe. Something.
Guys, I hate to say this, but I really have to pee.
Okay.
Daddy, what happened to your mustache? You don't look like Hitler anymore.
No, I don't. I guess I just shaved it.
Finishing the thought on Lifeboat, it is a great movie. I consider it one of Hitchcock's best, actually. The next film we're going to talk about was my choice. I don't know if I would consider it one of Hitchcock's best films. It definitely falls in the category of underrated because it's rarely ever talked about. For a while, it wasn't released, available on either DVD or VHS. But I think it's a really interesting film by him because it's unlike any other film he's done, I think. It's The Wrong Man. And The Wrong Man it's based on a true story about a guy who was falsely arrested.
And it is one of Hitchcock's most favorite themes is of an innocent man being accused of a crime he didn't commit.
But not, in the traditional North by Northwest, 39 Steps way. It's like a true story, and it's almost works like a verite documentary in a weird kind of way, where it's everything shot on location.
That's another rare one that's shot on location because very few of his films are shot on location after a certain period. This one I liked a lot because it was really because I never really I didn't know too much about it. I thought it'd be just one of his familiar films of a man on the run, then trying to prove his innocence, which is anything but that. The man is never on the run. Mm-hmm. He's accused of a crime that he didn't commit. And the one thing that I like too is the performance by Henry Fonda in this. Mm-hmm. What I liked is that the way he plays it is that he could be convicted, could be guilty of this crime.
He's a little melodramatic.
He's a little melodramatic, but
I think the key performance in it is Vera Miles.
Yeah, Vera Miles is great. What's interesting in the real life story, it pretty much followed what happened in the film, and I think it's neat that they have that little bit at the end where they explain what happened. She did have a mental breakdown from the whole thing. But I would say for me, the weak point isn't Henry Fonda; it's actually Anthony Quayle as the attorney they hire. Because in real life, that guy became district attorney for New York, and there's no way in hell that guy felt like a New York attorney to me.
No, he felt like he came from like London.
Yeah. Well, he's a Canadian actor.
Yeah.
He's played a lot of British parts, but he was just too affected for my taste, and I was like, come on, you went with Anthony Quayle for that part?
I had a little, one of the problems I had with the film, and there weren't many, it was an interesting film, not one of my favorites, but I just had a hard time believing that Henry Fonda was this ethnic guy. He's not really an ethnic guy.
That's one problem I had. I tried to ignore the name.
He's as waspy, well, not really waspy, but he's as down-home Midwestern. Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, that's also, I'm not trying to defend that choice. You have to think of like when the film was made at one time. This was before something like Marty came out. Nobody was going to go for someone that looked that part to play that part.
Yeah,
it had to be a star.
And I do agree with you on that.
And I think considering that, I thought Henry Fonda was actually pretty good.
But look at his family, his like sister and brother-in-law.
I don't disagree, but that's...
It was a little odd.
Well, but my whole thing is Henry Fonda has that kind of distinctive criminal look. Not ethnic look, but he does look criminal-like to me.
Seedy.
Exactly.
Really? You think so?
Yes.
Knowing
what I know about Henry Fonda,
there's that scene
well,
where
if you see Once Upon a Time in the West,
he's told to go into the liquor store. And the way he behaves, and or when he goes into the insurance place, and the way he behaves with his hand in there, you could see how someone could say he's guilty.
It's in his eyes, especially.
Yeah, he has that look, and that's why I thought at first, I thought he could be guilty.
What I think is
crimes.
outstanding about this film, though, is the way Hitchcock directs it. And it's interesting because he kind of goes out of his comfort zone with this film in terms of that he keeps it very verite. in a sense.
Not as many styles.
It doesn't feel like a Hitchcock
But
film.
he's got two of the most awesome stylized shots I've ever seen in his films.
Are you going to talk about one of them being the scene where he's fought, where Henry Fonda's about to be handcuffed and march down the line with the other
Well, no,
prisoners?
when they lock him in the cell and you see his eyes come out of
Yeah.
the jail cell. That's one of the most impressive shots.
My favorite
Like I was
shot.
just marveling at that. And then the other one is he's walking into his house, and the way they shot that is they actually pulled the front of his house as he's walking into it, so you get that feeling that you're on the outside of his house, and the next thing you know, the camera is in the house, and there's no editing slice there. I mean, they literally removed the front of the house as he's moving into the house. That's an amazing shot.
My favorite shot in the movie, believe it or not, is the one when he's put in the police van, and he's looking at the soles of the people's feet.
That's
in
what
their
I was
hands.
talking about. That's the shot I was like, where I thought it was how he just has a camera just track.
Yeah,
people,
it's just a
and you
simple
just see
shot.
what's going on in his head. I see he sees
see
how
the
they're being
people's
treated,
shoes.
and now he's going to be a part of this.
Yeah, he sees the shoes, and he can tell that he's not. The people's hands are very rough, and that they're criminals.
It's the
and he's
closest
not.
thing Hitchcock has done to a kitchen sink drama. Basically.
Yeah, it's the closest thing. It's a
Well,
really
I like the sequence when he's getting arrested and getting arraigned, how true to life that feels, and how to most of the cops he's just a number, instead of like in most films would make it purely focused on Henry Fonda's character getting arrested and being treated, but how it shows like when he's going up for his mugshot, they have to tell him how to do it, and then it's just like next.
Well,
Like it's so dehumanizing.
What I like about too is that it shows how a person can be convicted of a crime on such circumstantial evidence, where these people are not even sure. They just say you're going because he looks like it. There's no evidence to place him at the scene. There's no fingerprints. There's nothing.
Well,
And
there
when
was
he's-
the writing.
The writing
the
sample.
same.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was really damning.
But at the same time, they do show how easily the mistake was made too, because the actual guy who he's mistaken for looks a lot like him.
yeah, and I like it. That he doesn't look like a doppelganger, but
Right.
he's that same type of person, but he's a lot younger.
And it was a true story.
Yeah, it's well handled. It's not a typical Hitchcock film.
Well, you guys are going to laugh at me, but if I would have to recommend this film to an audience, I would recommend them to have a companion film with it. And you're never going to guess what film I would make this a companion piece to. That would be Michael Moore's Sicko. Because this film is essentially all about medical insurance and what he could be able to afford and what they can't afford. I mean, that's the spine of this story, is the fact that
$300 to extract wisdom teeth is the cost of everything.
and because health insurance is not affordable to a jazz musician, even though I was trying to figure out how the fuck a jazz musician can afford that big house and
In
his
Jackson
wife
Heights.
and his wife can stay home.
Well, at the time, though, I mean, you could easily make a living performing.
Yeah,
and there was a
$85
period of
a
time
week.
where, like, if you want to be an actor on Broadway, you could realistically make it happen and make a decent living doing it. It's not like today's economy.
Well, everything
where
was
it's
nightclubs back
impossible.
then. And one thing that was very interesting too is the location footage that Hitchcock is able to get of Jackson Heights, which is nothing like that today. It's a hellhole compared to what it was back then. Beautifully shot too, and definitely one of my
I
favorites.
wouldn't call it a hellhole. It's very ethnic. Jesus
No,
Christ.
it's a hellhole. I hate it.
Nice
just-
job,
all
Hitler.
The highways are all
Maybe
over
you
the
should have
place.
kept that
You're being
mustache.
racist.
No, I'm not. It's a hellhole. I hate it. I have to go.
So,
visit my
anyways, The
friend
Wrong
in-
Man was my pick.
I actually, of all the films that we recommended today, with the exception of mine, this is probably my favorite. I love Lifeboat, but this one was a real surprise to me because it's not your typical Hitchcock.
Yeah, it really.
I love Lifeboat. I've seen it.
Okay.
I saw Wrong Man recently, and I'm a big Hitchcock fan. That was the only film I hadn't seen by him until recently, and it totally took me by surprise too.
Because it's really not his typical.
The hell?
style.
That was your pick. What the hell's going on?
I saw it before.
What the hell happened to his mustache?
Hey, what? Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it. I can
It's
tell you
in
this
the
first
hellhole
right now.
of Jackson Heights,
We're gonna edit
with
that.
those
Right.
minorities he doesn't like.
No, I just don't like it.
I think a minority stole his mustache and gave him razor burn.
Oh,
So what was-
God.
So we
what
went
was
from
the
one
other-
racist to another
Okay.
racist.
What's
my-
the other Hitchcock?
Yeah,
film
what's your
that
pick?
My
we're supposed
favorite.
to-
Well, I think the most unique film in Hitchcock's filmography, even though it has a lot of his trademarks, is the one I picked, which is Frenzy, which is his next to last film, and this is the first film that Hitchcock actually had no problems with censors. He could do whatever he wanted. It was an R-rated film, and it was written by, I believe, Anthony Schaefer, who was a very famous
Yes.
playwright, who wrote The Wicker Man, which is one of the greatest horror films ever
Sleuth.
made.
Well,
And Sleuth.
it was based on his book.
Yes.
What was it? Notes. Goodbye Piccadilly. Hello or Farewell Leicester Square.
Yeah, and it was very interesting too because
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
Hitchcock
Really on
going
top of
back
this.
to his roots, actually going back to England to shoot a film for the first time in years. And there's a great documentary on the DVD where he actually talks about how he went to this place, this market, and the people knew him there when he used to work with his father because he used to work in this area, Piccadilly Circus near areas, this area. And he went back and he shot this film, and he actually went and went back to his roots. It feels like a lot of like his old British films, but with the sex and the violence. And it's hard to believe a person of Hitchcock's age and generation could direct something so graphically violent and disturbing. And the acting in here is very good, even though John Finch, the lead actor, who's actually gone on record saying he thinks this movie is a piece of shit, and thinks it's a crappy book and a crappy movie. And I'm like, dude, this is probably the best thing you've ever been a part of. You should be, you know.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I was going to disagree.
I completely disagree with that.
Really?
Macbeth is probably one of the best things he's ever been
I think
involved in.
Frenzy is.
I think Frenzy's okay. The problem I have with Frenzy is that there does seem to be an awkwardness there where Hitchcock's trying too hard to be up to date, and it doesn't really work with him.
Oh, I highly.
Because there's scenes where even though he shot in London, there's scenes like in Covent Garden where it does look like a set. I mean, it's like the whole style that he just got accustomed to in the 50s and the 60s, the Technicolor look with the stage-bound stuff. It seems to awkwardly be placed in this early 1970s film, and you got that going on along with this attempts to be daring with the nudity and stuff like that, and it just comes across as kind of awkward, and John Finch's performance is a little melodramatic.
Oh, I like his performance. I like it. I think he's just a totally unlikable.
I'm jumping in here. I
character.
agree 100% with Edwin. I fucking love this film. Matter of fact,
shocking.
it went to one of my top 3 favorite Hitchcocks of all.
Interesting.
I loved it from start to
I think
finish.
Barry Nelson, is that the
Barry
actor?
Nelson, awesome villain.
He's really good at it.
Awesome villain.
And I love that whole scene with him in the potato truck trying to recover this.
That's a great
That's
scene.
an odd scene, but it really worked because all of a sudden you were feeling sympathetic for this really, really cold-hearted villain.
Yeah, he's a scumbag. I mean, he just.
Yeah, and just
Barry
so
Foster, I believe is his name.
Barry Foster.
Foster,
You're right.
that's
You're right.
it.
You're right.
Barry Foster.
Barry Nelson was in
just
The Shining.
Yes.
very ugly, psychotic, and that you just hated. Like at the end of it, you just hated redheads because of this guy.
Well, I love the whole murder scene where he's going lovely, lovely, and he's strangling someone with the necktie.
Right.
It's genuinely terrifying. And there's a brilliant scene in there too, which is one of I think Alfred Hitchcock's finest moments in terms of camera work. Is a scene where you follow Barry Foster going up the steps of the house, and the door shuts, and the camera comes back outside the door and goes back down the stairs and outside the house, and then all of a sudden you hear the scream because you know what's going to happen already. Very brilliant camera work.
I think
Are you okay?
I'm trying to.
What happened to your
express
mustache?
my issues with the film. I think it's a flawed Hitchcock film.
Yeah, see, I agree with
I
Eric on
think
this
there's some
one.
stuff in there where it's like, okay, the old school Hitchcock isn't working with what he's trying to do modern-wise. I mean, if he applied the techniques, say, he applied to The Wrong Man in the 50s, came up with that kind of, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But I just was so, it reminded me a lot of Marnie in a certain way, where he was trying to push these almost surreal, stage-bound visual cues that just came across as awkward rather than.
I agree with you on the Marnie, but I don't agree with you on the Frenzy.
Yeah,
I thought
think
it.
it's one of his
I
best
thought it
You're
hits.
wrong.
I haven't seen
I thought it
Marnie,
hits.
so I can't
such-
You're
agree
wrong.
with it.
It hits
Jeff, your
beautiful,
opinion, please.
pulpy notes.
I pretty much agree with most of the things that you're saying. I remember when I first saw it, this was years ago, the thing that really struck me was just how, this is not a director thing, it was just the hairdos of the two main characters.
What is
the
the
man.
70s?
I know, that distracted me a lot. But for the most part,
What, John Finch's shag?
well, yeah, it was just.
And Barry Foster has like the big,
like,
you know, you
kinda
only
like
thing
white
you're missing is the
Jufro.
waka cha
You know.
music.
Well, one.
That's the style.
Barry Foster's.
Yeah, but I just felt the film, it just.
White Jufros? What?
Anyway, let's not.
That somehow downgrades the film because
No,
of the
I
white
just
Jufro?
said I was
upping the controversy
fascinated.
quotient in today's
I just said I was
episode.
fascinated by it the first time I watched it. I said, for the most part, see, now you get my voice going. But I agree with Eric that I feel like it's a flawed piece of filmmaking. It's not bad. It's still better than half the films out there. But I just felt that Hitchcock was really struggling with the content and felt like he was free to do it. And if sometimes to me it just feels thrown in more than
That's
necessary.
weird that you thought he struggled. I thought it
didn't
was
think he
just
struggled at
really. I mean, I know that he was upset at the end of the filmmaking, like he was uncomfortable with the idea of doing nudity in his films, like no more nudity in the films. Like, and the only complaint that I have about the film, and it fits with my cinephile profile, is I was disappointed that the nudity wasn't of the actual actresses; they were both body doubles. And I was very intrigued with how he found two leading ladies that were actually victims within the film. Anne McCowan, and I forgot the other woman.
Anna Massey.
Anne Massey. Yeah, Anne Massey McCowan. That's her name.
No,
And
it's Anna Massey.
Anna
my
Massey.
notes say Anne Massey McCowan.
She was
Your
she was
notes
a famous
lie.
part of a famous
Anyway.
brother-sister acting.
But I found her just to be kind of homely but sexy.
Well, that's
I
what I
was
liked about her. She's not
and
this
I was
gorgeous
really
woman.
and I was really disappointed that she didn't do the nudity. that was
she's
my
also-
only complaint.
She was in a lot of films when I was a kid. She was in one that now Eric loves,
told
which
you.
is Volta Horror.
Yeah.
A very famous episode.
Well, and her brother
was
was
in
in
it too.
the Vampire,
She's
and
killed her
their
brother.
father was a famous Raymond Massey, was in Shape of Things to Come and stuff.
It's
like
a
that.
very
Classic actor.
the reason I like this film is that it's just a very different film in Alfred Hitchcock's
and that
filmography.
gruesome scene of the girl's tongue hanging out of her mouth. You
Oh,
know,
it's
when they
got
find her on the
those
crime
cuts
scene.
of like when you
don't
just see the
that
dead
too
body in the truck like this with its eyes open. I mean, you really feel deaf. I mean, I felt very genuinely disturbed by this film after I saw it the first time. But it's definitely it's definitely an unusual film in Hitchcock's filmography. I think you guys can agree with me at least.
Well,
on
I
that.
wouldn't say it's. You know what? I don't agree with that actually. What I thought with Frenzy is I felt like basically he was trying. You know, there were films he did earlier which I thought were more disturbing and felt more grounded. You know, in terms of filmmaking.
Well, of course, you didn't mention Psycho. Of
Well,
course.
Psycho I think is a fucking brilliant movie. You know, but even like his earlier stuff. This one, Frenzy, it did feel like he was stuck in this kind of filmmaking he thinks he's famous for, while still trying to make it modern in the early 1970s, trying to like compete with that. And it just, for me, it's just a little jarring. It doesn't work. Like for example, the acting style. John Finch should have been a lot more kitchen sink. But he doesn't come across that way at all. He sounds too posh for a guy that's supposed to be that guy.
Oh, I think he's a very rough brute.
I
brute
like
type
the
of
doesn't
fact that
have-
he's
he
not
doesn't-
a
it's not a
likable
working-
hero
That's
at
why I
all.
like it. He's
No,
like
I like it
drunken
too, but he doesn't
bastard.
have a working class accent. It's very posh, royal shit.
You were the guy who was the actor.
What happened to your mustache?
I was supposed to say you look like Hitler. What happened to your mustache?
Wait,
Stick to the script! Hey, Oliver Hardy,
Do it. Go
shave
ahead.
out the rest of your mustache.
Just do it. Come on, quick. What happened to your mustache? You look like Hitler. Go ahead. Just say.
This is like the worst joke writing in the world.
No, that's
This is like the anti-comedy sketch.
okay. I was supposed to say, oh, what do you mean? Oh, fuck it. I'm shaving the rest off. I tried.
Did George write this scenario on a bender?
I tried to do it.
And I hope to hear Gloria complain throughout.
Where is he going?
Oh,
He's shaving off the rest of the mustache.
He's gonna shave his butt hair.
I gotta tell you, as stupid as that was, that will make an awesome end credit.
Yeah.